Greetings, welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the Virgo new moon, the first of two in this particular Virgo season, which occurs at 0 degrees and 22 minutes across the 22nd or the 23rd of August, depending on location. I'll share with you shortly the exact timings for some of the major cities of the world. Now, to be honest, this unique particular Virgo new moon is very complex, because we all know that when we have lunations we will see lots of memes on social media talking about what we can do to set our intentions, the rituals that we can do, all very valuable, but we really need to understand the unique characteristics and personality of each particular event based on its own astrological characteristics, and that can only be decided by the event chart. So when the new moon precisely occurs, that is a snapshot of that moment. What does that tell us? I'm going to share with you the themes of Virgo, what a new moon is essentially about, what makes this particular new moon so fascinating because of a fixed star that it applies to, but also because of the moon cycles involved, because there's two at play. And also I'm going to share with you the event chart from a natal perspective, which ironically has an ascendant in Virgo, but pictures the sun and the moon into the 12th house, which is more of a Pisces type energy. But I'm also going to share with you the solar event chart. So that's how this event feels from an overall zodiacal perspective. I'm then going to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can look out for over the following month, the backdrop energy of this particular new moon. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. Thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, please check out my testimonials below. It's a great honour to provide personal consultations, and when people do provide feedback, it's very humbling. It genuinely is. Also, my new website at patrickarundell.com, it's evolving all the time. You can download your free natal chart, which has a terrific free interpretation. Enjoy the 3 free card tarot. Also watch your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly general, love and Vedic horoscopes. And also you can get your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. That's patrickarundell.com. So the first of two new moons in Virgo across the 22nd and 23rd. What's the significance? Well, it's very late in the day in LA when this event occurs. So on the screen now, I'm showing those timings. But New York, right through to Sydney, is on the 23rd. The fixed star that I'm talking about, or have referred to, is Vector. Vector is very powerful. It does point towards an energy which has a flavour of Virgo, but perhaps the lower vibrational energies. So it has some strengths. It can be a person who may be quiet, rather patient and persistent, very positive, but it can also be someone who can be rather suspicious and mistrustful, but does have a great sense of control. But that control can get pricked at times by the frustrations of life, and that is going to be particularly relevant on this event. Why is that? Well, it's because we have feeding into the position of the sun and the moon two quincunxes or inconjunctions of Pluto in Aquarius, the planet of the collective in the sign of community, but also Saturn and Neptune in Aries, the first zodiac sign, which is very much to do with our physical identity, but also maybe our physical energy. Both retrograde, with Chiron also retrograde in Aries too. So they're feeding back, they're in a great link to each other, 60 degrees sextile, but they're feeding back to the position of the sun and the moon in a finger of God, a yod. So that adds a complexity, because if we think about it, Virgo energy is very much about being conscientious, can be about being meticulous, the details, can be about making changes where we affect refinement. So we find by looking closely things that we can alter in a way which creates something better. And that's the virtue. So it can be very, very helpful, Virgo energy. Virgo people can also have a great talent for assisting others, providing services in a very efficient, timely way. But it can also be things like our life structure. If we're a person who has a very metronomic approach to life, we get up at exactly the same time, we have the same choices of meals through the week, we have a pretty routine approach, that's going to be challenged not just by this yod, but also by the annexing planet, which is Uranus. And that's why that potential for anger is going to be quite strong on this particular new moon, because since Uranus darted into Gemini, where it's going to be to the end of the first week of November, Uranus can be about higher truths. The sign of Gemini can, as we know, be quite mercurial, so quick moving energy, but we're also being assailed by huge amounts of information which can affect our sense of well-being, but also our routines and our peace of mind, very Virgo. But also the square acts as an outlet for that yod, because what the Pluto energy is telling us and showing us is that society is changing, not least through technology, not always in a good way, and also Saturn and Neptune in retrograde in Aries. Neptune can be very draining, Saturn can be very restraining in terms of physical energy, and of course is in its technical fall in Aries. So although they're good for the conversation about where we're heading as individuals, and we're conscious that there are changes going on, the routines and life structures that we've had for a long time, I feel, are being strongly challenged. And that can affect our sense of well-being, which is what Virgo is very much about. Whether Virgo is directly about health, that's up for questioning, because some astrologers would say it is, others would say I think it may be Scorpio, because Scorpio can be about what begins and what ends, the cycle of life. And of course we can put Pisces or 12th house energy in the mix as well, because that's the sign or house of culmination, and can be to do with illness and hospitalization. So I feel Virgo for me is more about virtue, but it's where we can use our initiative, because Mercury, the ruler, gives us the nous and the precision to look at information, absorb knowledge and make some changes. So for example, the internet's absolutely wonderful for garnering information on nutrients, for example, or supplements. Whether it will always be reliable sources, that's another matter, but it's much easier to find out about those things than it would have been 30 or 40 years ago, when you would have had to go to a library. So Virgo energy and the internet, very, very strong if we take the initiative to make some changes and alterations where we're looking for some kind of net gain of improvement. So that may be about improving our sleep, our rest, our nutrition, our diet, gaining recipes, the sixth house, the earthiness. We want to do things that, help us to make improvements. So virtue can be a very, very good thing. And as I mentioned, Virgo people, or people with a lot of sixth house, which is not exactly the same as Virgo, but it has an echo, can have a gift to assist, support, be very obligatory. But I feel that if the energy of change that's going on in the world at the present time is impacting on us, this particular first new moon in Virgo with Uranus in the mix has the potential to be very, very disruptive, because we may feel overstimulated. Third, sixth house energy in a square, especially with Uranus in the mix, just speaks of stress central. So our adrenal systems are going to feel a real load in. If we can't quite comprehend the changes that are going on, if some of the news we're watching or absorbing is dispiriting in some ways, it all feeds into our well-being. So we need to take that personal well-being seriously, but we also need to take action too. So Uranus in a way can prompt us to be open to new ideas, information, conversations. But I think that that potential of that fixed off factor for anger to just erupt is very, very strong with the square to Uranus. Now, on the screen now, I'm showing the event chart from a natal perspective. Now, I use Greenwich, not because I'm in the UK, because I don't live in England, but because of the prime meridian. And I also use universal time, which is different from British summertime. And that you can see from on the screen puts the moon and the sun in house 12, which is very, very much about the more psychological impact. So if we're feeling drained, depleted, some of what we're reading and absorbing is getting us down a little bit, it can feed into our sense of emotional well-being as much as physically feeling drained or feeling irritable on edge and perhaps a bit picky and critical. And that can be perhaps the more negative energy of Virgo when there is a load-in which is difficult to sustain. But look at the position of Uranus. It's the most northerly planet, so very, very powerful. It's very, very close to the 10th house cusp, another factor in its influence, but it's also in house 9. Now, house 9 is knowledge. It can be about international affairs. It can be about travel. It can also be about learning, higher education, but most importantly, it can be about publishing. And the sign of Gemini is most certainly about quick media, whether it's digital media through what we read on our phones, on social blogging sites, microblogging sites, or it is what we read on news websites. So I think the Uranus energy could see some information coming into the open about what's affecting our welfare. Some of this won't be entirely fresh, so I think it can be things like microplastics, but more recently I think, we have had a huge amount of debate, certainly in the UK, about how pollution has affected rivers. But also, I feel more recently we're becoming more conscious how chemicals are affecting our DNA. So expect a lot of that to come out over the next 4 weeks. So as much as those memes on social media will be telling us to set our intentions, be more virtuous, a time when we can improve our health, and we can, we have to be realistic about what we're, or the point we are all collectively in, and not everything we read or not everything that competes for our attention may necessarily be for our welfare. So we need to be very, very realistic about that, I feel. So it's really interesting that the ascendant in Virgo on the event chart does have the part of fortune there, which shows that if we take the initiative, we take personal responsibility, which I think is a very positive Virgo trait. Yes, Virgos might find it unsettling, not necessarily if things aren't neatly in place. I think that's a very basic archetype, but they may just find it unsettling if there are opportunities for efficiency that are missed by being sloppy or lazy or not really pushing ourselves. If we want to stay a bit low in vitality, we're not going to break free of being a couch potato, but we do have an opportunity with this event to be a born again couch potato. So that means upping the steps, finding the information. We may find some of that information provocative. I think it's possible that someone through our work or through our well-being could offer some very direct advice that we may find somewhat jarring. So as much as we may want to just cocoon ourselves away, work on what we can do in an individual sense, there's lots and lots of information coming through about how different household products that we use are not very good for us, the chemicals that are in them, even down to the hand soap we might use, the paper products that we absorb in the kitchen or in the bathroom. All of these things have chemicals in, and I think because of Neptune being very much about what we can't see and Saturn being about restriction, you can see there in the 7th house the open enemies. But we have a chance to take more responsibility, but we also need to be aware that our nervous systems are really going to be rattled by this event, I feel. I'm showing the event chart from a solar perspective, and you can see that puts the guys in exactly where we'd expect, house 6, but it does put Uranus in 3, so an extra edgy energy. And if you do feel that it's difficult to keep up with all the demands that are being asked of you, that's the time to find one's voice. And that's where Mercury's rulership of the sign of Gemini, and therefore the receptiveness with Uranus being in Gemini, because Mercury rules that sign, that we can be more outspoken about saying, well, I'm coming to work, perhaps as a healthcare professional, it's very stretched, there's illnesses, there's understaffing, underfunding, and that's having an impact. I'll do my bit, I'll work an extra half an hour to support my colleagues, but I'm not working 2 hours extra if it's not really appreciated and critically, very Virgoan, respected. So for all of us, I think we need to give ourselves a bit of a cosmic hug. If we can make more food from scratch, if we can source more ingredients locally, if we can wash what we use carefully, if we can use filters on our taps or water jugs with filters, brilliant, go for it. All of these are to do with purity, which is what Virgo loves, because essentially house 1 is about our journey starting out full of hope, if you like the Fool in the tarot. It's about going for it in a free and easy way. Saturn and Neptune are not allowing that at the moment, so our physical vitality is lower. We have the energy of Pluto in Aquarius, how we're all connecting and how technology is affecting our future, the sign of Aquarius, linking back to that energy in Aries. But the output, the annex energy, is coming from that Uranian position in Gemini. So whether it's trying to sort through our paperwork, perhaps cleansing and clearing our space by freeing up items that no longer serve a purpose for us, but we could give to a charity that would provide some support to someone else. Maybe we can be more mindful of food waste when we're cooking. Maybe we can support local businesses rather than bigger chains. Maybe we can grow our own vegetables. Maybe we can do things like, rather than spend money, recycle things or buy things inexpensively that still have life in them. That can all be very much to do with the thriftiness, the virtueness that's so positive about Virgo energy. Virgos can often have a very good and dry sense of humour as well. Don't miss a lot, of course, which we all know, if we've been critiqued by a Virgo, can feel like it can strip the varnish from a conversation, but often there's a well-meaningness to it, even if it is penetrating, even if it is to the point. Just to say that when we have the Sun and Pluto in a quincunx, another outcome of that energy is it's hard to integrate. 11th house is friendship, and the sign of Virgo, the 6th house. If we do have friends that we feel take us for granted and don't appreciate how conscientious we are to them, that may be something we're going to be considering as well. So that's just an overall flavour of all the things that we can expect. And it's also, I should just say, a black moon. But interestingly, it's the first of two because it's a black moon, because it's the third new moon of 4 new moons in the season. But also, if we have 2 new moons in the same zodiac sign within a month, they're also called black moons. So the next new moon on the 21st will be a black moon too. So just a little bit of astrological trivia. And when we have that solar eclipse on the 21st of September, just coming right alongside the new moon, we're also going to have a sextile to Pluto and an opposition to Saturn and Neptune, and a trine, disassociate trine to Uranus. Intriguing astrology, isn't it? The cycles of time. So whatever we can do to take a bit more responsibility, to clean up our act, but where can we be thoughtful to help others? Where can we be a bit more giving, a bit more charitable? But most of all, if we are finding a lack of spark and motivation to take action to improve our situations, at the end of the day, as much as other people can help us, it's what we do for ourselves that can be so incredibly powerful. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs. Just to say, please take advantage of my year 2026 zodiac or transit forecast offer. Completely unique to each person, 30% off. You'll get the rest of this year 3 if you order now. And you can also get my life roadmap report, a great document which gives searing insights into the patterns that are played out so far, and together great value. And please see below for more. So Aries, we have to be mindful of your ruler Mars. Mars is in the next sign along from Virgo of Libra. And that's giving you a desire to be a bit more assertive about your boundaries in relationships. But the third 6th house square of Uranus to the new moon is also something you could be conscious of, because if someone isn't tuning into you, isn't being as appreciative and respectful as they could be, I think that's something you're going to want to confront. So confronting things takes a degree of courage, stepping into the moment, and if there is something you've been putting off in relation to perhaps a colleague who's a bit sharp, always seems to focus on what's not quite right rather than celebrating what you've done really well, Mars gives you the chance to use this particular new moon energy to find your voice. And that voice can be amplified for sure. I just think it's also important with Virgo energy to pick our proverbial battles, because 6th house energy can be about the minutiae. So it's very much the lens closed. Sometimes we need to just widen the lens to see that big picture, because being conscious of that will help you to then select the things to go into conversation about, which are really worthy, which really merit it. Because if you are feeling quite frazzled by demands, phones ringing a lot, lots of emails coming in, lots of documents to formulate, send out, resources are stretched. That seems to be the case in lots of situations these days. If you are selective, it will work better than letting that all meld together to be one clump. But really do use that Mars energy. It can be such an asset for you. Your mind is stepping up a gear, there's no doubt about that. But if you do feel that a job you have isn't working so well, or you need to join the gym, or there's a local group that you could get together with, such as a walking group, these are great things you can do. And Mars in that 7th house can just give you that little bit of extra confidence and thrust to actually make that move. So Taurus, the combination of the sun and the moon in the 5th house of your particular chart, can be very playful. It can be very social, and it can also encourage us to showcase our creativity and flair. What's not to like? Well, it's just that Saturn and Neptune are in a much more muted deeply reflective part of your scope and are feeding into this event. What you can gain from this, however, is that Uranus for you is in the second house, which can be about resources, money, but also our self-worth and values. But its link in the square could see you up for perhaps looking at opportunities in a more speculative way. But the host, Virgo, can help you to crunch the numbers, to look at the potential dividends you could gain from any kind of investment or business idea you've got, and that therefore could work well. But that part of you that does love a little bit of luxury is going to be tested over the next month. You may find that something or someone proves to be irresistible, and the electric and unpredictable energies of Uranus could see some kind of connection or purchase happen very, very quickly indeed. So Gemini, the intriguing thing about this particular new moon is of course that Mercury is your ruler and is the ruler of Virgo too. But for you, even though the host is very much about precision and practicality, it's the fourth house, which has an echo of Cancerian energy. So it's about our environment, can be about where we live, how we feel about things. And the energy of this particular new moon is of course challenged by Uranus in your sign. So if you live somewhere and you're not really enjoying the immediate environment, it's too busy, too quiet, too spacious, too small, you may find yourself very restless over the next month. You want to do something about it. But also what you can do is use the energy of Uranus, if your home feels cluttered, to try to find some ways to free up some more space, or to reorder, particularly if you work from home or you do have some kind of home-based business, reorder the space you do have in a more imaginative way. But Uranus in your sign is likely going to make you more impatient. So if you don't feel heard or seen in an emotional context, but particularly around your family or extended family members, that could be something that you're going to want to express, and in a very direct way. But the fourth house can be quite tender and at times maybe a little bit defensive. So just be aware that if something does seem to be closing in, or someone's a bit aggravating, the more picky energy that we can get with Virgo could see you be in some ways triggered. That's really the issue here. So a great time if you want to change where you're living in some way, and you're able to do that, get things in motion. But if you do feel a bit stuck, the frustration that can come from Uranus squaring up with this new moon is something to be very mindful of, to be honest. So important to stay in touch with feelings, even if your natural default is to use your intellect in order to deal with any challenges or anything that might be out of kilter. So Cancer, your sign is very much predicated on the moon, the feelings of the moon. So every lunation, really important for you. This one in Virgo, Virgo is about precision. But the third house for your sign in particular has a kind of echo of the energy of Gemini. So fast communication, quick thoughts, but also an opportunity to talk about your beliefs, maybe connect to people in your community, the third house, have more interaction with siblings or neighbours. Real positive potential there. What are the potential challenges? Well, if you are finding that the thinking or the doing in your life has or is causing a degree of stress, perhaps because there's so much to digest and work through, Uranus can be an agent provocateur, but not in a particularly comfortable way. So a conversation could occur over the next month. New moons are supposed to be about those wonderful new starts, but I think you may have to have an important conversation if you're not enjoying some part of your daily routine, Virgo. And that conversation, the third house, the mercurial influence here, could just see something that's been boiling away beneath the surface, burst into the open. So that's Uranus in your 12th house. And I think this could be about your work, to be honest, because of Saturn and Neptune being right at the top of your chart, especially if you're an early born Cancerian. The loading that's coming from professional goals and expectations may be having an effect on your nervous system, which can be ruled by the third too. So if you're feeling a bit more highly strung than would normally be the case, try to think about the ways in which you could perhaps use some stretching, some yoga, some walking, some swimming, to stretch out, but also give you a little bit of distance from some of those daily demands and those lots of emails and messages that seem to dominate all of our lives, because you can affect this situation, but essentially what you need to do is use the honesty, the truth that Uranus seeks, the authenticity that Uranus seeks, to perhaps look at a tender subject or stream, and it may be linked to your past, and talk to someone about it, release it. So that Uranus energy for you is very much about releasing something that's trapped. Could be something you've been thinking about for some months that isn't quite working for you, that's making you feel uncomfortable. Release it over the next 4 weeks. So Leo, the energy of this new moon gives you a chance to try to find ways to be a bit more virtuous about your expenditure, sweat a bit more from your assets, be a bit more thrifty. All very Virgo in energy, but for you the second house. It's just that in terms of your long-term plan, the energy of Uranus, if you're not really enjoying what you're doing at the present time, Uranus could provoke you in a way to perhaps consider a change. But that change may have some kind of impact on the way things are at the moment, because the second house can also be about foundations. But if you feel conflicted, you're not quite sure what to do, you may find that different friends or people will give you differing viewpoints, which could create a little bit of tension and stress. So I think if you are looking to make a big decision around finances or your future, it may be quite an intense next month, even next 2 months, to be truly honest. What you can do, I feel, is use the energy of Saturn in your 9th house to seek help and support from some kind of expert. It may be a business consultant, it could be an accountant, someone in banking, maybe it's a wise owl who's a friend, but maybe it could be even a lawyer. But their knowledge and experience can help you to unpick the balance between wanting to keep things reasonably steady, but also wanting to embrace perhaps a more daring future. And that's really the conundrum that I think is going to come up for you. And especially if you're in a relationship where your partner may see things very differently to you. That's Pluto in the 7th house. But Uranus is asking you to perhaps take a walk a little bit on the wild side, push back against your own more conservative instincts. So it may be a bit more of an inner conflict. Another thing that could happen with this new moon is, as much as you may like someone or encounter someone that has, you know, a very likable personality in some ways, they may have particular values that really clash with yours. So Virgo, 2 new moons and a solar eclipse make this an incredibly potent Virgo season this year. What to make of it? Well, I do feel if there's something you've been thinking about recently that you've been really weighing up whether to go for or not, a new moon really is encouraging you to have the confidence in your ideas and really put your best foot forwards. It's just being aware that with Uranus right at the top of your chart, that part of you that does like to help people, that can be very enabling for other people, providing services, being very aware of the details, being very conscientious. Uranus in a way is asking you, is that what gives you satisfaction anymore? Or is this the time for a change? Pluto too, since the 19th of November, is asking you, is there something that needs to evolve in terms of your work, your life structure? So if ever there was a time to start afresh, it's certainly over the next couple of months. But equally, I'd also say to you, a fabulous opportunity for you to refashion your personal appearance. So if you have wanted to give yourself a different hairstyle or perhaps update your wardrobe, go for it. It will really be very, very good for your personal confidence. It's all about the identity, the first house. And because you're someone who is very supportive to others, it's now a better time to step into what you need to do for you. Will everyone like it? Probably not. But sometimes we have to really be single-minded to achieve our long-term life goals. Libra, 12th house new moons can be a time of the year when we have a chance to just step back a little bit, enjoy a bit more peace and quiet, immersing ourselves in nature, enjoying some spa days, watery 12th house, the sign of Virgo, about virtue. So both the emotional and the physical side of healing can call out to you over the next 4 weeks, but with the second new moon and the solar eclipse, it can be a theme that really takes you into the early part of next year. But also 12th house energy gives us a chance to look at things that we're a bit more reluctant, more tender issues to do with deep injustice, past hurts and upsets. And what can activate some of these to come up and be released is the energy of Uranus, because that's in the 9th house for you. That can be about travel, it can be about being more daring, but I also feel that you could just encounter someone who just maybe has some insights and knowledge to share, which can help you to come to terms with some things that are historical. And once you've released them, that will give you much more energy in the here and now. But if you are in a romantic relationship, which is bumping along the bottom of it, with Saturn and Neptune on your 7th house, the descendant, and Pluto on your 5th house of romance, there may need to be some frank discussions about some parts of the tie that don't work quite so well. Doesn't mean to say it can't still reinvent itself and move forwards, but there may need to be some tender exchanges in order to do so. Scorpio, with the restrictive Saturn and the draining Neptune in the part of your situation to do with your physical well-being. This is a new moon in the sign of Virgo, which gives you a great chance to do something about that, particularly if you can collaborate or spend time with friends who want to go to activities like Tai Chi, yoga, swimming, go to the gym. It makes it more convivial, and that could be just the spur you need. But also, if you really appreciate hobby crafting, the precision of Virgo, but being with someone else and sharing the experience can also be something that you can embrace over this next 4 weeks. There are some other energies applying to this, with Uranus, the planet of freedom, in a very deep and psychological part of your scope. If there are ongoing friendships that aren't quite giving you what you need at the moment, particularly with your modern ruler Pluto applying back to this new moon in a challenging way, you may actually conversely want to spend more time alone and break free of anyone who's rather draining, restricting, or perhaps even a little jealous or controlling. Sagittarius, Virgo new moons always give you an opportunity to think about your place in life, your connection to the world, whether you're pursuing a career avenue that's satisfying and stimulating, whether you're raising your profile, getting the recognition you truly deserve. And if you feel there is more to come, use this new moon and the solar eclipse later on in September to push forwards with determination over the next 6 or 7 months to seize that golden prize. But you know, there's another converse energy here. The sign of Virgo can be very much about fulfilling and conforming to set routines. And whilst it is a mutable sign, just like yours, that part of you that can be freer and likes to be more independent and adventurous could be challenged if you're in a role which is a little bit too samey, a bit too stale, and has lost some of its sparkle. And if you are dealing with anyone professionally who tends to be very unpredictable or wants more and more commitment from you, when you feel you're giving your best with Uranus squaring up to this event, the position of Pluto is going to give you the words and the passion to express your side of things in a way which can shift the situation. But I do feel for some archers, this may be a time when you think about changing your career or applying for a job in a different setting. Capricorn, you have quite the reputation of being the person who really sticks at things for the long term. Your patience and application often bring fantastic results. But you may find with this particular new moon that you're feeling a little bit restless. But that restlessness may not just be about work and everyday obligations. It could be about where you live. It may be that you're wanting some new experiences. Perhaps, for example, you thought of travelling, a long distance travel plan to somewhere exotic that really would be a trip of a lifetime. Perhaps you thought about higher education. Maybe it's to do with learning a foreign language. But somehow or another, you're wanting to shift the paradigm in some way. And that could surprise other people. But it's unlikely to just be over the next 4 weeks. This energy is going to permeate into your situation for about the next 7 months. And the reason for that is the solar eclipse, which occurs on the 21st of September, also in Virgo, is going to feed into the start of next year. So if you are someone who's usually very responsible and perhaps maybe a little risk averse, this is your opportunity to be much more open to fresh and different ways of doing things, particularly if you are feeling that life has become somewhat stale and rather too dull. So Aquarius, the intriguing thing about this year's Virgo new moon, the first of two, is that as it occurs, your two ruling planets, Saturn traditional, Uranus modern, but also Pluto, the planet of transformation, which is located in your sign, are all linking to this event in a very precise way. Now, usually Virgo new moons are an opportunity to don your celestial detective smack and really dive deep into the heart of situations, that penetration, whether it's thinking about long-term finances, being more entrepreneurial, understanding the cycles of life, engaging more with subjects like astrology or anything to do with personal development, because your psychological understanding can expand. But the 8th house can also be a period of the year when some parts of our existence do come to a close, to be replaced by phoenix-like new energy. So the influence of Pluto in your first house is really saying hold your individual uniqueness. Saturn in the part of your chart to do with how you converse is saying take your ideas seriously. Uranus is in a very playful part of your situation, encouraging you to be a little bit more daring when it comes to expressing that more innovative and modern part of your nature. It depends on when you're born in the sign of Aquarius, but there is a duality to the sign. Early born Aquarians can be both radical but quite adhered to the past, quite traditional in some ways. It's really a paradox. Later born Aquarius people can be in some ways really quite mellow. It just depends. But I feel that there may be something that needs to evolve in your situation, but particularly your connections to others. And wherever you're invested, whether it's who you bank with, who you buy particular services from, such as insurance policies, who you get your mortgage with, who you're very connected to spiritually or perhaps even intimately. Those are the relationships that come under the astral microscope very powerfully, not just over this next month, but perhaps over the next 7 months too. So Pisces, the Virgo new moon, each year is an opportunity for your sign to think about how you connect to other people. For some of us, that can be in terms of intimate relationships, but for others, it can be partnerships where we enjoy working together. It may be to do with shared interests. It could be the person that we find just is always there to give us a lift in our friendship circle. that accord is very, very important in life. And even if we're not personally looking for an intimate relationship, which can be part of the story with 7th house new moons, we do have a relationship with ourselves, and we do have a relationship with the people around us that we daily encounter, with our colleagues, with family members, and of course friends. The other thing about the 7th house new moon, it gives us a chance to think about where we need to come into contact with others, and sometimes that does mean being more combative, particularly at work. If we work in a competitive environment, or we enjoy sports such as badminton or squash or tennis where we've got one direct opponent. So all of those things are coming up for you over the next 4 weeks, but also right through into the early part of next year. And the reason for that is the coming solar eclipse shadows this event, and that's on the 21st of September. So whether you're happily single, whether you're in a relationship which is not really giving you everything you need, whether you're wanting to understand more how other people perceive you, this is going to be a very important phase of your overall life. Now, how do we analyse this particular unique event? Well, I think we have to be mindful of the role of Uranus, because that's in a part of your chart to do with emotion. The sign of Virgo can be cool, a little bit detached because of the energy of the ruler Mercury, which can be analytical. But when it comes to relationships, if we put the relating planet in Virgo, Venus, that's also a little bit restrained. So Uranus can be quite a volatile influence, and particularly through to the first week of November this year, if you are feeling that a family relationship isn't working very well, you may actually be much more outspoken about it over this next half year. Also, because Pluto, the planet of transformation, is tucked up in your 12th house, some issues that may have been deeply buried in your psyche may need to come out about all sorts of contacts and connections with others. And that could be around business partnerships as much as any personal relationships. And part of the reason for that may be about Saturn and your modern aquatic ruler Neptune, because they're applying restriction around everyday finances at the moment. So if you're trying to negotiate something with a partner, whether it is a colleague, whether it is a business relationship, whether it is within the family, and you're not feeling very heard, all of these energies can create quite a lot of tension, but also frustration. And one of the things that I think you're going to find yourself do, which may surprise you, is be a bit feistier about telling people about what you need and what you want. But actually that's extremely constructive and positive, because there is a part of your nature that can be incredibly sacrificing. And if you've done your very best, but you still don't feel people are leaning into your needs, a much more militant part of your nature is set to come out over the next 4 weeks. But equally, if you want to meet someone, it may happen very quickly, very unpredictably, but it could be through someone you know locally, or it could be even through a family member that you have an electric connection, which truly is exciting, but also, as I say, somewhat surprising.